Emile had my devices hacked to prove I cheated on my pregnant wife. So, I fought back against her paranoia. I'm 27. I should be focused on preparing for my first child, decorating the nursery, picking out names. Instead, I'm dealing with a family drama that's threatening to tear my marriage apart just weeks before our baby is due. 3 years of marriage and one pregnancy later, I realize how naive I was. What started as typical in-law tension has spiraled into something I never could have imagined. And now, with my wife 8 months pregnant and more vulnerable than ever, I'm watching her family become the biggest threat to our happiness. I met Emily at a friend's barbecue 3 years ago. She had this infectious laugh that made everyone around her smile, and within minutes of talking to her, I knew she was special. Our first date was perfect: dinner, walking through the park, talking until the restaurant had to kick us out. The red flags didn't start appearing until I met her mother, Linda, 3 weeks later. "Emily tells me you're in sales," Linda said over dinner at her house, cutting her chicken into precise squares. "That's interesting. What made you choose such an unstable career?" "Mom," Emily protested, but Linda waved her off. "I'm just trying to understand his choices, dear. After all, if this relationship goes anywhere, these things matter." I should have recognized it then. How Emily's shoulders tensed, how her usual confident smile dimmed whenever her mother spoke. But I was too focused on making a good impression. The warning signs kept coming. When Emily and I decided to move in together after a year of dating, Linda showed up at our apartment with a U-Haul full of Emily's childhood furniture. "Mom, we already bought a bedroom set," Emily said, staring at the massive oak headboard being unloaded. "Don't be ridiculous, sweetheart. This is real wood, not that particle board you picked out." "Mark doesn't mind, do you, Mark?" Before I could answer, she was directing the movers, rearranging our carefully planned layout. Emily just shrugged helplessly. "It's easier to just let her do it," she whispered. When I proposed 6 months later, Linda's reaction should have been another warning. Instead of congratulating us, she immediately took over the wedding planning. "Emily, dear," she said during our first dinner after the engagement, "I've already called the country club. June weddings book up fast, you know. And I've made an appointment with my seamstress. She made my wedding dress, and of course she'll make yours." "Actually, Mom," Emily tried to interject, "Mark and I were thinking of a fall wedding. Something small, maybe in that rustic venue by the lake." Linda's face darkened. "A barn wedding? Oh, honey, what would people think?" No, we'll do this properly. Trust me, you'll thank me later." I watched as our intimate fall wedding morphed into a massive June extravaganza. Every time Emily tried to make a decision, the flowers, the music, even her dress, Linda was there to override it. "But I really love this dress," Emily said in the bridal shop, twirling in a simple, elegant gown. "Oh, sweetie," Linda sighed, "that's so plain." "You don't want to disappoint everyone. Here, try this one, it's much more appropriate." The appropriate dress had enough beading and tulle for 3 weddings. Emily looked miserable in it, but that's what she wore down the aisle. After the wedding, Linda's controlling behavior escalated. She insisted on weekly family dinners at her house, where she'd spend the evening subtly criticizing our life choices. "You know, Mark," she'd say, refilling wine glasses no one had emptied, "my friend Caroline's son just made partner at his law firm. Isn't that wonderful? Much more stable than sales, don't you think? And they just bought the most beautiful house in River Heights. You remember that neighborhood, Emily? Where we always dreamed you'd live." "We're very happy with our condo, Mom," Emily would say quietly. "Of course you are, dear. It's cozy. And I suppose you can always upgrade once Mark finds a more suitable career." Under the table, Emily would squeeze my hand apologetically, but she never directly challenged her mother. That was our pattern. Linda would push, I would bite my tongue, and Emily would try to keep the peace. The real manipulation showed in the small things. Like how Linda would accidentally schedule family events when she knew I had important work commitments, then guilt Emily about my absence. Or how she'd show up unannounced with groceries, claiming she was worried we weren't eating properly. "I noticed you've gained a little weight, Emily," she said one Sunday, poking through our refrigerator. I hope Mark isn't encouraging too much takeout. You know how men can be so thoughtless about these things. I'm a grown woman, Mom. I can manage my own diet. Of course you can, sweetie. That's why I brought you these wonderful lean meals I prepared, just like I used to make when you were living at home. Each time I tried to establish boundaries, Linda found a way to make me look like the bad guy. When I suggested alternating holidays between our families, she burst into tears. I just don't understand, she sobbed to Emily over the phone. Why he wants to keep you away from us. Your father would be so hurt. You know his health isn't good. Emily spent the next 3 days apologizing to me for something that wasn't her fault. Things really started to take a dark turn when Emily became pregnant. I was over the moon, excited, nervous, and ready to support her through this new chapter. But from the moment we announced the pregnancy, Linda was all over us, trying to take control of every aspect of the pregnancy. She insisted on being at every doctor's appointment, even though Emily and I had planned on going alone. She took it upon herself to make decisions about the baby's nursery without even asking for our input. I tried to explain that we wanted to make those decisions as a couple, but Linda simply brushed me off, saying things like, I know what's best for Emily. I've been through this before. That was just the beginning. Linda had opinions about everything: the prenatal vitamins Emily should take, the color we should paint the nursery, even which side of the bed Emily should sleep on. One evening, while Emily was napping, Linda cornered me in the kitchen. Mart, I've been thinking, Emily needs more support during this pregnancy. I should move in for the last month. That's not necessary, I said firmly. We've got everything under control. Everything under control? She laughed. Emily told me you suggested she try natural childbirth. That's completely irresponsible. She needs someone here who actually knows what they're talking about. Before I could respond, Emily walked in. Mom, please. Mark and I can make our own decisions. But honey, Linda's voice turned syrupy sweet. I'm only thinking of what's best for you and the baby. You know how overwhelmed you get. Remember how you couldn't even handle your first apartment without me? I watched Emily's confidence crumble. Maybe Mom's right, Mark. Some help might be nice. That's how Linda ended up moving into our guest room, and our home life became a constant power struggle. But the real breaking point came when I discovered just how far Linda's manipulation had reached. I came home early one afternoon to find Emily's brother, Tom, hunched over my laptop. He jumped when I walked in, and I knew something was wrong. What are you doing? I demanded. He looked like a kid caught stealing cookies. Just checking my email. On my password-protected laptop. After some pressure and a threat to call the police, he broke down. Emily asked me to copy your data. She's worried you're hiding something. Mom convinced her of what exactly? That's when Emily walked in, back early from her doctor's appointment. Her face fell when she saw us. Mark, I can explain. Explain what? My voice was shaking. Explain why you're having your brother hack into my private files? Explain why you didn't just ask me if you had concerns? Mom said. Emily started crying. She said men always hide things during pregnancy. That you might be planning to leave, or having an affair, or... So instead of talking to me, you decided to spy on me? After 2 years of marriage? Linda appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. Don't you dare make my daughter cry. She's in a delicate condition. No. I cut her off. You don't get to play that card. Not after orchestrating this whole thing. The argument that followed was ugly. Emily crying, Linda defending her actions, Tom trying to slip away unnoticed. I'd never felt so betrayed, not just by the invasion of privacy, but by the realization that my wife trusted her mother's paranoid theories more than she trusted me. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emily came to find me in the garage where I'd been sitting alone for hours. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I know I messed up. Mom, she has a way of making everything sound reasonable. She kept telling me stories about Dad's affairs, about how she wished she'd checked his phone back then. Emily, I said gently, I'm not your dad. And your mom, she's not trying to protect you. She's trying to control you. To control us. I know. She sat beside me, shoulders slumping. I've always known, I guess. I don't know how to stand up to her. That conversation led to my temporary move to an apartment across town. Not because I wanted to leave Emily, but because we both needed space to figure things out. We started seeing a therapist, both together and separately. After that, Emily began setting small boundaries with Linda, first about small things, then about bigger ones. She asked her mother to move back home. She stopped sharing details of our therapy sessions. She started standing up for me. Linda didn't take it well. "After everything I've done for you," she wailed during one particularly dramatic phone call. "This is how you repay me? By choosing him over your own mother." "I'm not choosing anyone over anyone else," Emily finally said. "I'm choosing my marriage. I'm choosing to be an adult. We're still working on things. I moved back home last week, and we're taking it day by day. Linda still tries to interfere, but now we face her together. Emily's growing stronger, learning to trust her own judgment instead of automatically deferring to her mother's." Last night, as we lay in bed talking about the future, Emily said something that gave me hope. "You know what I realized? Mom's always told me what I should want, what I should do, who I should be. But for the first time in my life, I'm figuring out what I want. And what I want is this: you, me, our baby, our life together. No interference, no manipulation, just us. It won't be easy. Years of conditioning don't disappear overnight. But at least now we're on the same page, fighting the same battle instead of fighting each other. And maybe that's what marriage is really about, not just loving each other through the good times, but standing together through the storms, even when those storms come from your own family." Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.